Hello there, this is episode 55 of JW Watch, the show that keeps a close eye on all things JW, offering Jehovah's Witnesses a more objective viewpoint on current developments that the governing body almost certainly doesn't want them to hear. Yesterday, the Irish Independent broke the news that Jehovah's Witnesses have set up several asset management companies in Ireland, headed up by, quote, seasoned investment bankers. The article mentions that the group, known for its repeated calls for donations, even to the point of encouraging children to part with their ice cream money, is currently flush to the tune of tens of billions of dollars in assets. Joining me to discuss this new development are JW Watch team members Jana Montero.
Hi.
And Arthur Weber. We're hoping...
Hello, everyone.
We also have...
I actually can't hear anything again. So.
Jonathan LaForge. Right, so initial thoughts on this development, because we've obviously been talking about this now on the JW Watch WhatsApp group over the last few hours. We're going to go through the entire article just so everyone has all the facts, or as many facts as we have at our disposal. But I'd just like to ask the panel for their initial thoughts before I share a little bit of context on this news.
Obviously, the news took us by surprise. It was something very, very interesting, and I saw the post on Larchwood's Twitter account, and I said, "Well, this is some news." So with Jehovah's blessing, we can talk about this in larger detail.
Let me just share some videos that I've prepared.
Is appointed our time, especially these last days of the last days, shortly before the last day of this old system, not as a time to seek and spend time acquiring physical comforts, but rather as a time to beautify the spiritual paradise and help others join us in this paradise. No wonder at 1 Peter 1:1 and 2:11, God's people are described as temporary residents. And it's real protection if we think of ourselves that way, temporary residents. Now, the illustration has been used of staying in a hotel room. Now, you know when you're in a hotel room, you're a temporary resident. You might do a few things to make your stay more comfortable. You might rearrange the chairs. You might reposition the lamps. You might buy some flowers, put it on a table. You might spray some air freshener. But you would never rip off the wallpaper and install new wallpaper. You'd never rip up the carpet, install new carpet or tile. You wouldn't buy new furniture. You'd keep it simple because you know you're going to be checking out. Now, even if you ended up staying a few months in that hotel room, especially if you didn't know exactly when you're going to have to check out, you would still keep it simple. Well, that describes our situation. We're going to check out of this old system. We're going to check into the new world. We don't know exactly when, but you know it's soon. So we keep it simple. We're temporary residents.
Are you, though, if you're setting up multiple investment companies in Ireland and hiring people with investment banking experience to manage your wealth? Are you really acting like a temporary resident, would be my question.
You would never sell the hotel and buy a hotel upstate. You would never do that. You can't even change the wallpaper. Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of staying in a hotel, he's investing in the condo.
If I
the
may offer
penthouse
my,
suite.
I'm sorry, Jana. You were asking Lloyd earlier about initial impressions.
Yeah.
To me, this smacked of, because I follow the Mormon Church quite a lot, it just looked a lot like them arranging their assets to avoid being, I can't say targeted, but the Mormon Church has recently had, the LDS Church has recently had some controversy surrounding its investment arm, Ensign Peak Advisors, where it was sued by the SEC for not following SEC regulations. And to me, this looks like a reshuffling of money into a regulatory space that's not going to have those same problems.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure there are very practical reasons for it. Ireland, not everyone will know this, but Google is based in Ireland rather than the UK. And I'm sure that there are many, tax reasons for that.
First of
Go
all,
on,
because
Arthur.
Ireland is part of the European Union, and the European Union probably...
Don't rub it in. Don't rub it in. Still sore about that. Too recent. Too recent. So yeah, you have this situation where Ireland is still in the European Union, but Ireland falls under the jurisdiction of the Chelmsford branch office. So
Yes.
what they can have by having these investment companies in Ireland is essentially the best of both worlds. They have access to the
Exactly.
European financial markets, and then the London Chelmsford branch can basically skim off everything that gets earned on these markets. I'm not a financial expert, but that's what it's immediately looking like to me.
Exactly. That was my 2 cents as well when I first thought about this.
So let's hear from Gage Flegel.
Here's an experience from Mexico. A little girl we'll call Laura, age 6, lives in Mexico. Sadly, she suffers from epilepsy. And after one particularly difficult hospital visit, her older sister gave her a piggy bank as a gift. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Laura received money from her family to use for school or to buy treats. So what did she do with the money? She decided to save the money in her piggy bank, depositing it there. Well, when in-person meetings resumed, Laura brought her piggy bank to the Kingdom Hall. What did she do with it? After the meeting, she broke it open, counted the money she saved, and it totaled 350 pesos, or about 17 United States dollars. She contributed the entire amount, giving half to support the local congregation and the other half to the worldwide work. Laura explained, I wanted to donate my savings for our brothers to use and to send more brothers to preach in foreign lands. Think about it. All of this was going through the mind of a 6-year-old. She also asked for another piggy bank, of course, so that she could start saving once again.
So an epileptic girl, let's take the money that she's saved in her piggy bank that she needs for very obvious reasons for herself. We'll take that, but we also have, was it tens of billions in assets?
Yes.
Well, I think that's actually part of the point, though. I don't think they want you to know how much they have so that contributions don't slow down. And not to belabor the Mormon point, but a lot of the reason why. So what happened with Ensign Peak Advisors is they were not filling out SEC forms properly to report how much money they actually had, because, and stated specifically by certain members of the investment firm, we don't want the members to know how much money we have, lest they stop tithing, because to stop tithing in the Mormon context is a sin. But you can see how that same thing would work in Jehovah's Witnesses. If witnesses in general knew how many billions the organization had, they might just hold off on the donations.
Be a little less inclined to give their epileptic daughter's piggy bank away.
The $17 that she spent all year saving.
I guess my attitude is any group, any religious group has the right to, be profitable. If essentially a religion sells a product, and that product is a set of beliefs that make people feel happy. And if people want to donate money towards that, that's their own business. But where I draw the line is vulnerable people, like epileptic children, for example. And, you could say children are vulnerable. And I think that not even allowing children, well, let's just watch the clip. Apparently ice creams are too much of a luxury. Yeah, so I guess, I mean, this is all I'm trying to do here is just add a little bit of context to what we're about to look at, because it just leaves a bad taste when I think about the extent to which they're going after money, including from kids and vulnerable people. Does that make any sense?
And now that, oh yeah, absolutely. And now that all of my equipment's working, I can actually answer the question that you initially asked me.
Please do, please do.
And for me, when I was in the process of deprogramming and deconstructing my faith and asking questions, I read Combating Cult Mind Control, and I was like, okay, all of these things align. You know, all of these, it acts like a cult. But what are the governing body getting out of it? I don't think they're getting anything out of it. They're living modestly in Bethel, just like all the other Bethelites. And then I saw your Unrighteous Riches video, and also a post on the Cult Education Institute about one of the buildings being sold for $2 million. And I was like, okay, where's this money going? And so that's why I think covering this right now is really important, because Watchtower is never going to be transparent about its finances.
Yeah. And to be clear, it could be that absolutely everything that's going on here is completely above board and completely legal and not really anything to write home about. But it's it's the point that you just made there, Jana, that why do we have to find out about this through a newspaper? Why can't this be mentioned in the letter to congregations or whatever?
You know, one thing is legal, and another thing is ethical and fair and moral and so on.
I was literally just about to say legal does not equal ethical. Same deal.
There you go.
Yeah.
The panel singing in unison as we go into the article itself, which I will do my best to read. I used to. Did any? This won't apply to you, unfortunately, Jana, or to you, Arthur. But Jonathan, did you ever get the privilege of reading the Watchtower at the Sunday meetings?
Oh, many times. Yeah, actually, it was my favorite thing to do.
Whenever I have to read something on one of my videos, it's always a little bit triggering. But anyway, the Jehovah's Witnesses religious group has established a new asset management firm in Ireland that features a slate of heavy-hitting directors, including the former chief risk officer at Swiss banking giant UBS and other seasoned investment bankers. The experienced financial directors are all understood to also have ties to the religious movement. That's a bit odd, isn't it, straight off the bat, that they have ties to the religious movement, these directors? Because aren't they supposed to be living their lives simply?
Right. Why would they be investment bankers and such? But yeah, you do get witnesses in unusual professions that the organization is happy to take advantage of the fact that they've been in that profession, but never would have told them to go in that profession in the first place, unless they need them, like making lawyers. Well,
you can't go through higher education. You know, there's consequences, as we're going to see in the Awkward Truth series. If you're an elder who allows his children to go to higher education, I defy anybody to try and get recruited into, you know, the higher echelons of an investment bank without having some kind of college or university education.
Well, sometimes the consequence is you end up working at Bethel.
Yeah.
I
So
will say,
straight
too,
off the
that
bat,
the ties don't necessarily mean that they're baptized servants of Jehovah who work at Bethel. The ties could be strictly business
Yes.
ties.
we don't know what the ties are exactly. That's a very good point. Thank you. But nonetheless, it's an odd situation. Something that's going to cause a few eyebrows to be raised. The religious group is thought to have tens of billions of dollars in assets and relies on anonymous donations from its members to support all of its activities. It has established 3 companies in Ireland in recent weeks, including Mina Asset Management, Mina Treasury Services, and Lepta Payment Solutions. All 3 are based at the community's Irish headquarters in County Wicklow. The directors of Mina Asset Management include 3 US-based directors and others based in Germany and Australia. Any thoughts on the names of these companies? Are these some kind of weird Bible references, Arthur?
They
Yes,
are.
of course. Yes, of
Yeah.
course.
They are.
So
Yeah.
the Minas, we remember the illustration of the Minas.
Don't say we remember. I don't remember. We all remember, brothers, the verse.
You will remember when
Blah,
he
blah,
tells it to you. Though. It's very.
I purposely
familiar.
dissociated
Yeah.
and during that meeting.
And the leptas are those small coins that the poor widow was seen putting in the treasury of the temple.
Actually, though, if we can go back to the Minas, the context of the Minas and what they are important. Arthur, did you want to explain that Bible?
Please do, Jonathan. Please do.
Okay, so Jesus gives an illustration regarding a master and a slave, or a master who has several slaves, you'll recall. And basically, this master gives out his gold talents or his minas to his various slaves, and then they're intended to return the investment in certain ways. Not all of them do return the investment, but this is what that basically is referring to, is the Mina Treasury Services is the slave taking the funds of the master and making an investment in those funds, and then being expected by the master to return investment. And I guarantee you they thought that through when they put that name in there.
I remember that now that you mentioned it, because they always mention the slave that goes away and buries his coins instead of actually making an investment and getting a return on it, whereas the good slave doubles his money.
Right, so you can see how they're kind of...
No, that's actually the illustration of the talents. Jaina.
Then maybe I...
Anyway, there are biblical reasons for the names. I think we can establish. Let's take some comments.
So Luke chapter 19 is the biblical reference.
We were all scratching our heads on that one. Thank you, Arthur. Anthony Morris returns. Beloved member of the team. Now is not the time to acquire riches, says the property mogul Stephen Lett. Yes, he does own property, as I've covered many times on the channel. And I think you alluded to that before, Jana. Monks says this is clear evidence that Armageddon has been cancelled. Yeah, so it seems so.
No, there is only a slight delay on arrival, but it will come shortly.
Movie Man 96 says, God forbid a child uses money that her family gave her for a treat or even for something practical for herself. Nope. I, as a 6-year-old, need to fund your cult work. Trey Bonnot says, wild how they went from the subtle begging for money with the widow parable and expense reports, and now it's just blatant and gross. Movie Man 96 also says, also another problem is they want to appear transparent about what their finances are used for, but they are in fact using a great part of donated funds for hush money in court cases. That's another area in which they aren't financially transparent.
We'll never know how much.
We'll never know how much. Thank you so much, Beauty Rest, for your super chat and support of the channel. That's very much appreciated. And just by way of transparency, and Anthony Morris returns, says they even expect people in refugee camps to donate. True.
Yes, they
So-
had that video recently with the cardboard pop-up donation box set up at the refugee camp. Wasn't there a thing not too long ago too about coconuts? Selling coconuts or sending them coconuts because they'll take any resources that you
It
have.
was on the broadcasts.
Anyway.
Meanwhile, they have
Enough.
all of these
Sorry, go on.
assets and financial experts, as the article said, heavyweights, right?
Yeah. So let's go back to that article. Let me just see if I can get back to how we were viewing it. There it is. One of the directors is Philip Lofts. He worked for UBS in the United States for 3 decades and was the group chief risk officer from 2009 to 2010 and from 2012 to 2015. He also served as CEO of UBS Americas in 2011. He was a non-executive director of UBS Group Americas from 2017 until 2023. He is currently a non-executive board member of major Swiss private banking group EFG International. Vasilios Papas, with an address in Germany, is also director of Mina Asset Management. He is the co-founder and managing director of leading global asset management firm Asenagon Asset Management. Maybe that's biblical. It has about 57 billion of assets under management. Tobias Brauerleit is currently an adjunct professor at Germany's for-profit IU International University of Applied Sciences, and lists his address in New York at the Jehovah's Witness property. Sorry,
This is
anyone
an
want to cut
active
in?
Bethelite who lives there, who's well, claiming at least that his address is at New York Bethel, and yet he's this professor at Germany's for-profit IU International.
Pretty sure
University of
professors
Applied
need to go
Science.
through higher education, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
and
They
and
don't learn.
indeed make their money from higher education. It could be argued.
Asset
so-
asset management doesn't have any ties with the Jehovah's Witnesses. That is probably listed as a credential for.
Right, thank you for clarifying
For
that. So
Mr.
there's nothing
Papas.
biblical in
No.
Asenagon. Okay.
That's
So-
actually Mr. Papas's former place of employment, probably before he came to work for.
So the
Mina.
UBS is investment banking company. It says a multinational investment bank and financial services company founded and based in Switzerland. And it looks like their assets under management are 5.71 trillion US dollars as of 2023. So all of these guys worked in this massive, it says the largest Swiss banking institution and the largest private bank in the world. And I think that's important. That it's
They
a
don't
private
mess
bank.
around, do they, Jehovah's Witnesses, when it comes to headhunting people to look after their
Right.
cash? It's like, let's go for the cream of a Swiss bank, you know?
And then if they're not dedicated baptized servants of Jehovah, right? Just like the person who does the beautiful artwork for the covers of the magazines don't get their name in the magazine. If these people are not dedicated baptized servants who don't expect anything back and are just doing it for Jehovah, then they must be getting a salary. I'm sure they were getting a salary when they worked for UBS. So are we talking about, I mean, sorry, this is speculation, but are we talking about Bethelites being paid handsomely for being part of this investment program?
I mean, that's not a pattern that Jehovah's Witnesses typically stick to. And also, I would also say that when we looked through the documents earlier on the when we were chatting, we were able to identify several different people who are on there. They're probably mostly these directors are baptized Jehovah's Witnesses who are semi up the ladder. When it comes to this, I don't think they would put their assets in the care of someone who's not. They just also probably happen to have had investment banking careers, which careers in Swiss banks really get you ready to hide money. What was the other part of what you said? I forgot.
About them potentially they had earnings when they worked at the investment bank. So
Right. So Inside Peak Advisors, again, my continuous example, does actually pay its employees who are managing the Mormon Church's funds a salary. It's not a competitive salary. It's usually 30% under what is being paid on the market. But I've never heard of that for Jehovah's Witnesses. I don't know if anybody else on the panel has.
Well, the thing is that
I wonder whether these directors will get. Sorry, go on.
In the LDS Church, there has always been they have been open with the fact that they are paying their staff, while in
as an example,
and in the JW Bethels, they signed this vow of poverty, so they are only reimbursed their basic needs or something.
But the vow of poverty is flexible according to what the order deems appropriate. So my question was going to be, we're talking about a bunch of people, some of whom appear to be Bethelites, who are directors of these asset management companies. And as directors, would they not be entitled to dividends?
Well, it's funny that you say that, because I looked through the corporate documents on at least two of these companies, Mina Asset and also Mina Treasury, earlier. And Mina Treasury is really the one where everybody's at. Mina Asset is just an extension of Mina Treasury.
Mm-hmm.
But the about 0.70 or 75 does allow for remuneration of directors. Now, it's an Irish legal language, which is a little bit different from what I'm familiar with, but that might allow for payment and dissemination of money between the various persons. But that also could be because as we look, I don't know if you're going to present those documents, but as we look through those documents, there's like 16 different associations of Jehovah's Witnesses from around the world who are listed.
Different branches.
In the Irish law, it's subscribers, but from what I understand, that's basically shareholders of the specifically the Mina Treasury company.
So it's for moving money around, and investment. But what I'm interested in is, I guess, and maybe it's I haven't seen all the documents that you refer to, by the way. What I'm interested in is this seems like a fairly new enterprise, hence the news just breaking now. And what's interesting is that this is Ireland, and Ireland will have very strict laws about accounting transparency. And I'm wondering whether further down the line this might not end up being a bit of a misstep for the organization if they do end up paying out massive dividends to individuals for being custodians of the organization's dedicated funds.
From what I understand, Ireland is always, or has recently in the last 20 years, become a great haven within the European Union, because remember, the Swiss are not within the European Union, for hiding money, if you want to do it. Now, I could be wrong, but that's literally been the news for some time, that they have their regulations set up in such a way so that it would be very difficult to discover, more difficult than in the United States, as an example, to discover what assets and what payments are being made.
Okay.
But it is like the kind of what like the Swiss banking is known for, isn't it?
Yes.
And so knowing that, is it UBS?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, knowing that UBS is founded in Switzerland and most of these guys worked there, they likely learned all of the tricks in moving money around and hiding things.
Right. It's become kind of a trifecta, from what I understand, between the Irish, the Swiss, and Grand Cayman, which has been a long time U.S. place to hide money. just basically offshoring. Ireland has become, from what I understand, a popular offshoring destination if you want to park your money in the EU.
Let's make some progress through this article. Tobias Brauerleit, we read that already, but he's worked for German banking giant Sparkasse as a...
Sparkasse.
Thank you, Arthur. As a portfolio manager from 2007 to 2009, and also held other roles at the group. Nolan Wenger... Arthur, step in, please.
Nolan Venkatasamy is also a director.
Is also a director. He worked as a bond trader. Go on, you read it.
Worked as a bond trader with ABN AMRO from 1997 to 2001. He also worked for South Africa's Standard Bank Group. Another director of MENA Asset Management is New Zealander Stuart Bull, who gives his address as the headquarters of the Jehovah's Witnesses in Australia. The Jehovah's Witness office in the UK was asked for comment. There are about 8.8 million Jehovah's Witnesses in the world, and an estimated 8,000 across the island of Ireland. About 1.2 million are in the United States.
And then
Scroll
it goes on
up
to just give some historical context about Charles Taze Russell being the founder, which is entirely true. He founded the Bible Students, and Joseph Rutherford essentially
It was
founded Jehovah's
expected.
Witnesses. From that, it was expected to fetch as much as 1 billion as the group. What was expected to fetch as much?
They
as 1
sell
billion?
the real estate.
In 2015, it put its worldwide headquarters in Brooklyn, New York, up for sale in various lots. It was expected to fetch as much as 1 billion as the group planned a move to upstate New York. In 2018, I think it was 2 billion that they got from
2 billion
New York.
from the whole
From the whole parcel. In 2018, the group sold the last of the properties it owned in Brooklyn, bringing to 37 the total number of properties it sold in the borough since 2004. In 2018, just one of the apartment blocks it sold in Brooklyn fetched 202 million when it was sold to Florida-based private equity firm Kane Anderson Real Estate. Among the well-known Jehovah's Witnesses are tennis champion Serena Williams, who carried the Olympic torch down the River Seine, last I checked, who was baptized by the group in Florida last year. So that
My local
is...
assembly hall, West Palm Beach.
And is
Yeah, there
the
you go.
relevance of bringing her up just because she's wealthy?
I think they're just trying to add
Someone you
some
might know.
fun facts about Jehovah's Witnesses at the end there.
They used to have Michael Jackson
Ugh.
and Prince.
and Prince at the same time.
Yeah. Brother Roger Nelson.
Yeah.
So some interesting stuff there, and I did actually do a little bit of digging. Let me just mess around a little bit.
I will say I think it's important that, or I think it's interesting, because we would never have known these people's names. Because just like I was saying with the Watchtower, they don't list anybody who works for them ever. They don't tell you who wrote the article. They don't list the team. It's always anonymous because it's just for Jehovah. So like their lack of transparency is egregious.
So this is the holding page for MENA Asset Management. So yeah, there it is. Be interesting to see what is on the website once it's finished.
So
Maybe a link to jw.org. and its videos on materialism. Yeah.
Or donate.jw.org.
Yeah.
So I looked up that section. Earlier I downloaded the MENA Treasury corporate documents, basically from the Irish government. And I looked up that section, and it's section 36. And anyone can download this, by the way. I don't know, maybe we can put a link somewhere. But all you need to do is go look up the Irish corporate registry and then look up the name MENA Asset or MENA Treasury, and you'll find this. You pay $2 or €2.50 and you can get the corporate constitution. But it says here, directors' remuneration and expenses. So the remuneration of the directors shall be such as is determined from time to time by the board of directors, and such remuneration shall be deemed to accrue from day to day. The directors may also be paid all traveling, hotel, and other expenses properly incurred by them in attending and returning from meetings of the directors or any committee and general meetings of the company, otherwise in any connection with the business of the company. So that answers your question.
All expenses paid.
So yeah, quite a lot to take in there, and I don't know, just again in the context of the attitudes towards donations and asking for ice cream money and all that kind of thing, and the whole higher education thing, just doesn't sit well really in terms of the hypocrisy really. We do know very little, and I think it's important to stress that we're just scratching the surface at this point. But they do say follow the money, don't they? And this might be a valuable way to do just that as this asset management enterprise kind of launches. Now we have something that we can kind of keep an eagle eye on and see how much money they're moving around, hopefully, if we get that amount of transparency according to Irish law.
As recently as last week's Watchtower, so last weekend, there were 2 paragraphs fully dedicated to having the correct view of money. And basically, you can't slave for 2 masters. 2 full paragraphs about it. About not building up treasures on earth, but treasures in heaven.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, this Mina. Sorry.
Go ahead, Arthur. No, I was just...
So obviously these asset management firms are a way of building up treasures in heaven, in the spiritual paradise.
Yes.
That's how they will argue.
Somewhere.
Well, actually, we've been focusing a lot on Mina, but can we just talk briefly about the other one, Lepta Payment Services?
Lepta. Yeah.
I found the name of that one also kind of interesting because the Lepta is the coin, or the coin 2 of which the widow put into the store, or the temple. Basically, she gave it to the temple. I suspect if they're thinking about their names, that it may be the case that they're setting up a payment service to take donations. And if they're setting them all up within the same context, it might be a funnel to take the donations directly into the treasury business, which then gets pushed off to the asset management, which is probably improper. Now that I think about it, that's one of the things that the LDS Church got in trouble for, and it's partially because they said that they don't invest donated or tithed funds. They don't put that into that kind of arrangement and use it for certain types of investments. They said many times that they don't do that they then have gotten in trouble because it's been traced back to them that they do, in fact, invest tithed funds. Now, I don't think the Jehovah's Witnesses have said the same thing, but it just seems like they're kind of setting that up to hide that flow of donated funds directly into this asset management business.
But I have a question. Would it be illegal for Watchtower to invest donated funds?
So no, but probably not. But going back to why the Mormons got in trouble is it's fraud because it's a breach of the agreement if you are saying that you're not. For instance, the Mormons invested in a mall in Salt Lake City using funds that were tithed funds, essentially, or the revenue generated from invested tithed funds, which then they got sued by a person who came to know of this, because they were able to say, well, you said you don't, but you do. So now you need to open your books to us and show us either you don't or you need to pay us back because you collected tithing funds in improper or like under fraudulently.
False pretenses.
False pretenses.
I think they're just moving further and further away from transparency because, they took away the congregation accounts. Basically, they just send all of the money directly to the branch, and the branch pays the bills. Before, you used to have to sit through the meeting where they would read off the full expense list and what everything went to. And they don't do that now. So I think they're moving away from transparency for a reason, but that's just speculation.
I'm going to read a Bible verse. I'm going to get out my Bible. We've already heard Stephen Lett referring to the temporary resident biblical precedent, which apparently applies to ordinary Jehovah's Witnesses, but not the organization itself. I'm also going to now read 1 Corinthians chapter 7, 29 to 31. Moreover, this I say, brothers, the time left is reduced. From now on, let those who have wives be as though they had none, and those who weep as those who do not weep, and those who rejoice as those who do not rejoice, and those who buy as those who do not possess, and those making use of the world as those not using it to the full, for the scene of this world is changing. Just seems, again, like scripture after scripture is just getting completely ignored in this very, very worldly pursuit of profits from investments.
Of using the world to the full.
Yeah. We do have... sorry, go on, Jonathan.
Well, what I wonder is, how in the world did this Irish newspaper figure this out?
Yes, it's very detailed. They've really done some digging there, and you wonder. I mean, this isn't the first time they've had some media coverage in Ireland, so I'm wondering whether that might be somehow linked. Arthur, you know what I'm talking about, don't you?
Yeah.
So they had previous press attention in Ireland, and I'm wondering whether maybe one or two journalists who were behind that have just been keeping an eye on things. Who knows?
Maybe they're working a source, though, because what random thing to look up and find, oh, it's weird. All these people seem to be directors in the society, and they're also...
Yeah.
And also because probably such information is getting out more easily in an EU
Maybe
context.
there's a mole who put in a phone
Could
call.
just be financial reporting. Three new businesses opened in one day. So it's kind of like, oh, well, let's talk about that. That's 3 new businesses with all of these huge financial backers who worked with billions of dollars. Absolutely, that's newsworthy.
That's the thing, though. New corporations get formed all the time. Like, they could be anything. Limited companies, which is what this probably happens 5 times a day in Ireland, if not more than that. But to know that these corporations are something to watch, unless you have a reporter literally sitting there watching the screen with the new corporations and searching for everything that's new, you're not going to know. And like, even so, who is this? What does this matter? They had to have some.
Do you think it could have been a tip-off?
I think it must have been a tip-off, and that kind of implies that somebody who knows about it is questioning the ethicality of the situation. I know I'm building an assumption on top of another assumption.
We can't prove this, but yeah, it seems plausible. Happens. Yeah, and surely the organization isn't going to be happy with this newspaper article.
I think they didn't think they would be known.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, literally, we have the signatures. Like, the document that's attached to this has the signatures of probably 16 different branch committee members, I would guess, from all the way down from members of the Watchtower Bible Tract Society of Pennsylvania and New York to Japan to Germany to Spain. There's tons of them in the literal written signatures of
Australasia.
All of them. A lot of them.
They definitely were not going to be happy about this being known and these men's names being known. They didn't even want you to know that Tony Morris isn't a member of the governing body anymore. It was just a tiny little blip at the bottom of the screen for transparency, and then it was gone. And they have yet to say anything about it. So, yeah.
Well,
there
have even been rumors that Tony Morris signed a non-disclosure agreement about why he got sacked
They
the
almost
governing
certainly
body.
did. Yeah,
Of course.
almost certainly. Yeah. They would do vicious things to him if he ever spoke out. I'm pretty
I think
sure.
they learned about that in 1981.
Let's take some comments. We've had that one already. Thank you, Checker. Beauty Rest. Thanks for all you do. Great panel. Big Boy the 8th. My 86-year-old mother is totally broke and lives in government housing. This after giving the Watchtower over $60,000 over the last 25 years, including a family diamond heirloom from her mother.
Oh,
It's crazy.
I'm so sorry to hear that. That's awful.
Yeah. Sorry to hear that. And that's wealth that should have stayed in the family. Trey Bonnet says,
That's
"Yeah, when
part
my
of sorry, I was just gonna
No,
say that's behavior control. It's financial exploitation and manipulation.
indeed." Trey Bonnet says, "Yeah, when my dad died, he left my mum off his life insurance because he thought she'd give it all to Watchtower. My brothers and I each split her an even portion, so she got 50k and she donated it all." Kwasi Owusu says, watching live from Ghana, West Africa, former ministerial servant and regular pioneer. I walked out 2 years ago to focus on my life. I just graduated with a postgraduate diploma. Congratulations, Kwasi. That's fantastic.
Congrats.
Congrats.
You are not unlike certain Bethelites, it seems.
I'm about to say, don't let
having
because now you got a degree. They'll stick you right in Bethel.
in having such a qualification, yeah. The Poor Man's Philosopher says, my wife and I previously had our election for retirement fund beneficiary as the organization after being encouraged to do so. So glad I didn't die physically and mentally in and leave them my nest egg. Excellent.
Yeah.
That's a close call, that one. Anthony Morris returns. Chaka says, having money and secular qualifications will take you far in the JW religion. Isn't there some indication that Gaius Glockentin, that's kind of how he rose to prominence? Because previously there was another governing body helper whose name escapes me. He was presenting the information that got leaked back in 2018 when we found out the amount for the organization's kind of contingency fund. And then not long after that, there was a switcheroo, and it's now Gaius Glockentin, it seems, that's kind of managing the piggy bank. Doesn't he come from some kind of prestigious kind of banking background or wealthy background?
Gaius Glockentin?
Yeah.
That's the rumor. He used to be an investment banker like these other guys.
Right. That's the rumor. So we can't substantiate, but that's
No, I'd have to do
going
some
around.
research.
Yeah. That's fine. I've hit you with that out of the blue. That's fine. Movie Man 96 says, so if the people they select to watch their funds are college graduates, does that mean that the governing body should be educated Bible scholars? Shows you where their priorities are. Fair point. Yeah. Wouldn't that be nice? Mind you, if they were educated Bible scholars, they'd probably stop being governing body members. Well, mind you, if they were honest, which they're not.
And with the rank and file, less educated people are more easily controlled.
Indeed. Lisa Burberry says a dividend would only go to a director if they're also a shareholder. Thank you for correcting me there, Lisa. You're absolutely correct. And Kurzstoff says, are you suggesting that the established fund will manage the resources of the Jehovah's Witnesses organization? I'll throw that open to the panel.
I think we are. I mean, if you download the documents or if we make them available somehow, and you look at all of the various branches that are attached to this effort and kind of how it's split up, I mean, we'll probably never know, but it seems like it's set up as a funnel. So you don't build a funnel if you don't intend to use it.
Yeah, so apparently, obviously, evidently, that's the purpose.
And I'm going to take one more comment before we do our final kind of rotation around the panel for final comments from Chaka, who is, again, watching, it seems, member of the JW Watch team. I think this is a way to avoid legal liability. They always used to defer to CCJW when they got into legal trouble, claiming CCJW has no assets. Now they can claim the same for all their entities. Yeah, that makes sense. Their money is now in a completely different place that they can argue is a completely different entity.
Interesting, though, that CCJW is not Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses is not attached to this effort at all. So
no, because that's just a religious entity. It doesn't have any.
It's completely separate. But I wonder, though, if I guess it would be that if they move all or most of their assets to this Irish corporation, if they would be untouchable from lawsuits and other liability taken on the individual institutions. So, like, for instance, Watchtower New York keeps getting sued in child CSA, basically, cases. If all the major assets are moved over, then they would be indemnified from suit, I believe. Speculation.
Okay, so I think we've given this a fairly good whack in terms of giving our reaction and some initial thoughts to this news. It's very, very raw news. It's literally just broken yesterday, and it may be that in the future we'll have a little bit more to say on it as new information comes to light. But I'm interested to, before we wrap up, just get the concluding comments of the panel in JW Watch / Watchtower in Focus tradition. So let's start with you, Arthur. What are your thoughts?
First of all, before I give in my my concluding talks, comments.
Don't say a prayer. Don't say a prayer.
No, there is one more interesting comment from Chaka. He says that I think it was Alex Reinmuller that was replaced by Glockentine. Glockentine was referred to as the financial rock star in Germany before brought to Jehovah's Witness World Headquarters.
Yeah, it was Alex Reinmuller. I remember now. Yeah, thank you, Chaka.
Yeah. So as a closing remark, well, it's been very, very interesting to see this piece of news, and we are looking forward on how it develops over the next weeks and months, maybe even through the annual meeting. We might find some pieces of information that might move things forward, even in this.
I would fall over if they mentioned this at the annual meeting. I would be very, very surprised. Yeah. Jonathan, your thoughts?
I think they were trying to make a funnel, and they thought they would get away with doing it quietly. And I think we'll see over time. Well, we won't see over time, but they're probably already moving major assets to this Irish corporation and its subsidiaries.
Indeed. And Jana?
I think that knowledge is power, and that's why I think it's important that, that we did this today and that you guys watched it whenever you're watching it, because it's not something the organization is going to tell you. And just like we saw in the comment section right here, just a handful of experiences of people being swindled out of their hard-earned money after being tricked into living simple lives, when billions of dollars are being played with by people that they'll never meet, maybe. So I just think that, like it was said, we'll keep an eye on it, and it's just an important thing for you guys to be aware of.
And something that's just occurred to me, as you were talking there, Jana, you've been very gracious in sharing your story on the channel, and it's a story that includes, tragically, sexual abuse. You're a survivor, abuse that got covered up by the organization. And does this not have permutations in that direction? Because, we're talking about funds being protected by an entity that isn't the Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses. So do you think this might leave abuse survivors worse off?
I mean, it's always so sad and disgusting to see the amount of money and time that this organization will put into not changing their policy, which could protect so many people and children. They don't want to change their two witness policy. They've just recently with the New Zealand Royal Commission, they tried to appeal to not participate in an investigation and lost hundreds of thousands of dollars on an appeal when all they were being asked to do was cooperate to make sure that they have safeties in place so that abuse doesn't take place in care.
But I guess that's
that
my
an
concern,
organization
because
that's backed by
because you
God
have
was
that
not
situation, and you also have the Australian Royal Commission, where redress was a big issue following the Australian Royal Commission. And what you now have, it seems, is an organisation that is moving funds around in such a way that if it is ever held legally responsible by a government or an institution or by a court of law, it can say, we don't have any money.
Or like, I think they've said, I don't have anything to do with that entity. That entity operates separately and independently of us. And so we're not financially responsible, although they're linked.
Oh.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that here. So
Well, that was the reason, first and foremost, that in 2001 CCJW was incorporated, separate from Watchtower New York, separate from Watchtower Pennsylvania, and that the governing body moved away from as directors.
They argued about that at ICSA as well. They said, and I was so infuriated, because they were saying all of these letters to Watchtower, or from Watchtower, sorry, don't apply because we're the Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses. And you literally look at the letter and it's just the letterhead is different and the address is exactly the same. And I use the analogy.
they're passing the
It's
buck.
like it's like Clark Kent putting on his glasses and saying, I'm Clark Kent, I'm not Superman. It's just so petty and ridiculous.
Yeah,
But that's the sort of organisation we're dealing with, unfortunately. Panel, you have been magnificent. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and insights and setting aside time on your Thursday or Friday, whatever time it is there, to edify my audience and the JW
thanks
Watch
for having
followers
us.
with your thoughts. Yeah. Okay. So viewers, I hope you have enjoyed this show. We will try to stay on top of this story, and currently the description simply says more details to follow, but I will try to put some links and documents in the description in the next few hours. So if you're watching this in the future, hopefully all of the information that you need will be there. But I must again thank my panel. This has been a very interesting show, and don't forget that you can watch more episodes and similar videos by subscribing to the Lloyd Evans channel. Thank you so much for watching.